This is again a future-focused panel. We are moving from the life and health more now into the general side of insurance. This is a panel on climate insurance, the role of tech and data in climate, the climate imperative, which is there. So I would like to invite Nymphea Batra. She is the CEO of Guy Carpenter, which is a specialist reinsurance broking firm and within the Marsh and McLennan group of companies in India. Nymphea, please, thank you. Nymphea in her current role assists insurance companies and reinsurers in the Indian market with their reinsurance programs. In designing, assessing catastrophic risk using vendor models and the Guy Carpenter proprietary models and reinsurance organization. She has been with Marsh and McLennan Group now for over 18 years. She's also responsible for the Gujarat International Financial Services, which is the gift city operations for MMC India. She also engages with the regulator and ministry on several reinsurance and risk-based solvency-related areas on a continual basis. Also, she regularly speaks and contributes at various insurance industry forums in India and overseas. Nymphea, welcome on this panel. Also proud to say she's an ex-colleague, so we work together. So, yeah. So now, I would like to call upon our first panelist on this panel, Ms. Girija Subramanian, Chairman-cum-Managing Director of Agriculture Insurance Company of India Limited. Welcome, ma'am. Srimati Girija Subramanian holds a bachelor's degree in statistics and a diploma in computer management from Mumbai University. She's a fellow member of the Insurance Institute of India and also an associate member of the Chartered Insurance Institute, London. Srimati Subramanian started her career as a direct recruit officer in GIC Re in 1988. In now a career spanning 34 years, she has worked in reinsurance departments across various lines of businesses, across the most prominent ones being aviation, life, health, and property classes. She was also instrumental in setting up the terrorism risk insurance pool for the Indian market and also the life operations at GIC Re. As part of her operational experience, she has led the inward desk of property, domestic and foreign treaty, facultative business, as well as the retro protection team, apart from broker relationship management. She has also led the global claims management team, as well as IT, HR, and other verticals at GIC Re. Traveled widely to attend different conferences. Takes avid interest in speaking at different forums. And currently, like I said, she is the CMD of Agricultural Insurance of India since September 2022. Welcome, ma'am. Now I would like to welcome our next panelist, Mr. Hadi Riachi. He's the CEO of Swiss Re India. Welcome. He's currently based in India, Mumbai, responsible for leading Swiss Re's reinsurance business in India and overseeing all products and solutions for property and casualty and life and health, including innovative, non-traditional as well as public sector solutions. Prior to his appointment, he was the head North Africa based in Zurich from 2018 to 2020. He joined the Swiss Re Group in 2015 in Shanghai as head property and specialty lines for Swiss Re Corporate Solutions China. In his role, he managed the development and performance of multiple lines of business, including property, marine engineering, energy, engineering, credit, and surety, amongst others. He's an experienced insurance professional, having held several important roles in different markets. He started his career with RSA in Oman, and since then he was appointed Regional Underwriting Manager for Asia and Middle East based in Dubai, Asia Underwriting and Reinsurance Manager based in Singapore, and Technical Director for RSA China based in Shanghai. He's earned his Bachelor of Science from the American University of Beirut, Lebanon. Welcome, Hadi. Our next participant is Mr. Jatin Singh, who's the founder and chairman, Skymet Weather Services Limited, and founder, managing director, Gramcover. Welcome, Mr. Jatin. He is in charge of the overall growth strategy of the company, technology, innovation, operations, and business dimensions. Prior to being an entrepreneur, Jatin was associated with TV Today Group as assistant producer and anchor. Looks familiar. Yeah. Skymet is India's largest weather intelligence and agri-risk solutions company, taking artificial intelligence, machine learning, and remote sensing technologies to ground that helps manage the financial risk of smallholder farmers. Always fascinated with the weather, even as a 17-year-old and a professional journalist, Jatin launched Skymet in 2003 with the intention of providing reliable and accessible weather forecasts. Skymet's greatest contribution is perhaps that to a large extent, Skymet has solved the monsoon forecasting problem in India. Yeah, that's an important one. Welcome. Nymphea, happy to hand you over. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilanjan. And after that invigorating speech by Venkat sir and of course a lovely panel on the life and health, we move now to the non-life side. And our topic today is climate change and how the climate imperative really impacts the future technologies and innovation in the non-life sector using tech and data. So, I mean, if you look at climate change, really, it is 50% of all our disasters that we have right now are because of climate change. You look at the years 1970 to 2022, about 45% of life losses, 70% of economic losses have all been caused by climate. India is among the top 10 countries in the Global Climate Risk Index, and the climate change is expected to cost about 3% of GDP. So, setting context, it's definitely a very important area and an important subject for our discussion today with our illustrious panelists here today. So, in fact, if you look at the panel, we have experts from agriculture, reinsurance, and weather analytics, and that's really, that really sums up a lot of what climate change and the impact can do, to the overall. So I think, given we are running a little short of time, we'll jump straight into the questions to the panelists, and then we will also, towards the end, bring in questions from the panel. So starting with you, Girija ma'am, we know that, you're so passionate about agriculture. You have a rich experience on the reinsurance side. Climate change is looming. It's got a direct impact on agriculture. In India, where more than half of the cultivated land depends on monsoon rainfall, our agriculture sector faces heightened vulnerability to natural catastrophic events. AICI is a dominant player in agriculture. You have a market share of about 40%. And with the small and marginal plots of land that are available, we rely really on the village panchayat level. The basis risk is high for the claim settlement. And how do you, as a leader, envision the possibility of moving to a different way in which claims assessment can be done? Are we ready to move to a farm level claim assessment?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So basically, I think from where we were a few years ago, and today we are at a much better position for agriculture, because I think earlier it was at the block level that this insurance used to be done, and now the PMFBY, which is a main scheme that goes to the farmers of this country, that is at the village level, village panchayat level, which is a good improvement in a matter of a few years. But yes, as you say, there is a lot of disparity in claim assessment and distribution because of the granularity missing in this whole thing. So yes, it would be better if we could go down and do it at the farm level. And this is possible using technology, by using satellite imagery, drones, and remote sensing technology. We definitely can try to bring this to the farm level, but that requires a lot of improvement on several areas. Like, for example, we need to get better on using the GIS and cadastral maps to see that the land records are maintained seamlessly, the boundaries are also defined. We are able to identify farms with their boundaries. These things are important. The remote sensing and the satellite imagery that we have right now that is being used is a much cheaper variety that we have, that we use the Sentinel imagery from the European Space Center database. And there, which is more affordable at this point of time. But if you need a better resolution imagery, then you would have to it would become much more unaffordable. So the affordability is an issue. The financial part of it is also there. So if you could use better satellite imagery, then it's possible to monitor the crop health on a very ongoing basis, uh, and also use from a lower, much more better resolution, which will help us define the crop health periodically, also help us define the land records and the land parameters, boundaries of the farms more in a much better way. That would help us to bring the insurance to the farm level. And that requires a lot of collaboration between insurance companies, between NGOs, the technology providers, and also the local communities to bring in awareness at the lowest level, that is the farmer level. At the moment, the awareness is really not very high, although on the technology bit, it's being used increasingly in agriculture. The government is really putting the best foot forward. In the recent last 1 year, there has been a lot of improvement in technological improvements in the guidelines of the scheme, wherein 30% a technology basis for assessment of claims has been made mandatory. So yes, going forward, I think the assessment would be more towards technology. I mean 30, 40, 50 in the next 3 years, and that is very promising for insurers, because when you do it at a larger than a farm level or village panchayat level, it becomes very unfair sometimes if technology is not used. There's a lot of moral hazard involved at the moment. Technology can help us eradicate that. We could also use technology in very big ways for the farmer to, you could be sending him the weather forecasts and other educational data that could help him, decide which crop to go for and how to irrigate, about fertilizers that could be used. There are many fronts on which technology could be used in the agricultural space. And all of this together with subsidies, increased subsidies from the governments, they should be putting their best foot forward in terms of bringing better technology with more resolution to the ground for the farmer, so that we are able to get a fair assessment of claims at the farm level, and the farmer who really loses his crop to the climatic conditions is able to prepare for such weather aberrations, and also able to get back the input cost and his loss, in a much better way.
Thank you, ma'am. I think this is transformative. If we utilize this, on a more consistent basis, it would be the best gift to the farmers, and of course, it would boost the government's confidence on the subsidies as well going forward. Hadi, we move to you on the reinsurance side, and right now the talk of the town are parametric products. I mean, everybody is talking about parametric solutions and products. We have a lot of tech investors in the room today who are also looking at this space quite actively. They come with their own pros and cons, we know that, in terms of, you being with Swiss Re, you have led some of these first NatCat state-led collaborations. Would you like to share your experience on what was the quality of data that you experienced while you were running this project? And does that boost our morale to look at more futuristic products on the parametric side in the Indian market?
Thanks, Nymphea. And you say the talk of the town. I think they're definitely gaining a lot of popularity. So and for good reasons, right? When we look at the climate risk, which is the imperative that we want to discuss today, and we definitely see an increased frequency and severity in the events. I think you mentioned 50% of climate events are driven by climate change. If I just put a bit that in context of numbers of what we're having to deal with, just last year, we estimate that we incurred economic losses as a result of natural catastrophe to the extent of $275 billion. And just 45% of that was insured. So that leaves almost $150 billion of NatCat losses that were uninsured. And as a result of the increased frequency and severity of these losses, that also means that the protection gap has been growing over the years. Although the industry, there's a great effort to close the protection gap globally, but climate change is really putting pressure and hence that imperative on us. Now, from an Asia perspective, and even from India, the unfortunate part is almost 90% of these uninsured losses actually take place or emanate from Asia. And that's a bit of the reality that we have to deal with also in India particularly. So one of the most devastating cyclones that we experienced just 3 years ago, Cyclone Amphan, there we estimate that the economic losses were almost $14 billion, and just a fraction of that, just less than 10%, were insured, leaving a lot of devastation. And so Mr. Venkat has just shared about the imperative of IRDA and the focus in India to say insurance for all, and we really need to have every home, life, health protected. And that's really the vision that we're driving with. And that's where parametric insurance, comes to help bridge that gap. And what parametric solutions offer is flexible, tailored covers that can pay in a timely manner. They are pretty straightforward to execute. Of course, Girija ma'am touched on some of the fundamentals that will be needed, technology, data. But that's really the opportunity for parametric solutions to come and help close that gap. We've seen just earlier this year, and in fact, just a few days ago, the tragedy in Morocco. Significant earthquake, devastation and fatalities that leave a big society looking for support. And there was a great example of a parametric cover in Morocco that was executed by the government there that, it's estimated to pay out $250 million for relief and timely relief. And that's, just a few days ago that happened. Whereas we see, other parallels of that in Libya, for example, which has just followed that, where, they're really struggling now to see, okay, how do we get the support and how do we get people back to recover from these tragic events. So this is a bit of context on why they're gaining popularity and how they can really help. I think from Swiss Re, we've been fortunate to have the opportunity to work in India on such an initiative, and of course with other partners, Tata AIG, and of course the Nagaland State Disaster Management Authority, to develop a parametric product that protect the entire state of Nagaland against weather events, and actually it's specifically in the context of excess rainfall. And so that was, I'd say, a first in India, where a state looks at flood, or which is obviously one of the directly impacted perils from climate change, and it was really an opportunity for us to test the ability to structure this product in also cost-efficient manner, but as well in a manner that serves the purpose of the state to provide the relief when that's needed. Of course, there's room for replication. Nagaland is just one state. India is vast, and protection gap, as I mentioned, is significant. Obviously, one of the key learnings from that journey, and it was a multi-year journey, is the importance of partnership to get that done. Partnership between public sector and private sector, partnership between various industry actors, and that's really what's needed to close the protection gap in general and deal with climate risk in India.
Thank you, Hadi. Very useful and sort of encouraging to hear that. Jatin, as we look at climate change, it is imperative that the agriculture sector remains resilient. There's been a lot of transformation. We've moved from genetically modified seeds to a lot of weather information systems. You're the expert in that area, so this question is more directed to you. As we are looking to enhance our weather forecasting capabilities, the government of India is also working on the WINDS project.
Yes.
Could you share some insights from what is really going on in that and how that is going to future sort of benefit us?
WINS means Weather Information Network Data Systems. And see, the problem with weather in India is twofold. One, of course, forecasting, right? Short, medium, long term, how reliable it is. The other is in India, and Ms. Subramanian will agree with me, when it comes to yield and everything, everything starts with the weather that happened, which will then impact the yield. Now, there are biotic and abiotic stresses, but weather is largely indexed to any change in yield and damage. And the problem is that India is a smallholder farmer agriculture where you don't have large farms. So therefore, and when we talk about weather parameter that is most sought after, it is rainfall. Precipitation is far more variable than say temperature or wind or humidity. Now, the challenge has been, and I've seen this for 20 years, when it comes to a precipitation event that has caused a loss, so far we have used area averages, okay, depending on the location of a weather station. And it is loosely defined that within 10-kilometer radius. Now, there is no scientific logic for it. Okay, the problem is that the need for governance is that there should be a rain gauge on every gram panchayat. If you have a rain gauge in every GP, your post-facto analysis of precipitation becomes much better for any kind of action that is going to happen. So and once you collect data over a long period of time, say 5, 7, 8, 10 years, then underwriting will also change, will be far more finer, so right now when insurance companies are bidding for clusters, you're looking at still larger area averages, right? And then therefore also once you're able to figure out the precipitation, then the moral hazard of yield data collection. So government is going to use satellite data for going forward under a program called esteemed. But satellite data is only going to be 30% of the weightage. 70% is still going to be crop cutting experiments. Crop cutting experiments is a manual process. It's a very difficult manual process that has tremendous amount of moral hazard issues. AIC knows this better than anybody else. And the idea is if you have a proxy like rainfall everywhere and if the yield and the precipitation are not matching, then the system will start changing. It'll be much more difficult to kind of tweak data this way or there once you have an objective precipitation data available. Second, if you have so much data available, your modeling for weather forecast is also going to be changed in terms of calibrating a weather forecast over 1, 2, 3 days. The problem is that we have never really sampled weather in India at that scale. I'll give you a simple example. We have a project in Maharashtra called Mahaved. Mahaved is 2,173 automatic weather stations, and we work with the government. Actually, we also work in Nagaland. The stations that Hadi is working with are also Skymet stations. Now, over the last 5, 7 years, we realized that routinely, in the middle of summer, central Maharashtra, you have temperatures of 51, 52, 53 degrees Celsius. Now therefore, the heat index is a different number on top of that. So you will now look at things very differently, right? Or for instance, that in coastal Maharashtra, you can have, when monsoon happens, you can have precipitation events at a point which is 300, 400, 543 millimeters was recorded in Mahabaleshwar through a system in one day. And that is an extreme event. Okay, right now when we define extreme events, we're generally looking at large areas like state of Himachal Pradesh, but extreme events on a lower geographical scale happen quite often. So it is going to go a very long way. I think it is a generational policy adjustment that the government of India has done, and I think it'll impact pricing as well as settlement of claims, or also, if I might use the term, agricultural anxieties in a big way, because precipitation is everything. You had one of the worst Augusts in over 100 years this past August, right? So that obviously has an impact on the coming yield.
Thank you, Jatin. Girija ma'am, coming back to you, and as we look forward in the future, we look at the future of agriculture in India, and also tie that in with the overall stated goal of our regulator and insurance industry to go very high on the insurance penetration. How do you think tech and data will play this role in increasing the penetration across the various agriculture schemes in India going forward? What are your thoughts on this?
Actually, tech and data currently also are playing a much bigger role than what they have been doing. And because of the direct bank transfers already being in place, so the claims settlement goes straight to the farmer into his account without any intermediary, and that itself is a very big step forward. And even collection, the onboarding of farmers is majorly done automatically through the government portals. But still the penetration is not as it is desired. So we have to actually start working using our marketing force into trying to get them into the account, into the scheme. So basically there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of awareness. about the product as such, and also because it's done at a larger area level at the moment. So the farmer doesn't really get to see the genuinity of the claims that are being either paid or not paid to him at various points of time. So I think we need to go lower and lower the, to the farm level, as we already discussed. As we are able to, employ more technology, then the assessment becomes fairer, because then you're able to accurately at least come to more level of accuracy on what genuine claims that are being paid out, and the farmer will be able to see that the scheme is actually responding to situations on the ground. And also, I think a lot of work needs to be done at the ground level when we employ technology, or more granular, or more resolution of satellite imagery. I think we also need to do many more ground truthing experiments, which require a lot of manpower deployment on the floor. At the moment, it's not optimal, and all companies that are engaging in crop insurance need to ensure that ground truthing is done in as much areas as possible, to be able to actually see whether our crop assessment is actually mirroring the situation on the ground. And when it is actually closer to reality, and then it will become an advertisement in itself. And I think the awareness is there, but it is right now hinging on misinformation and misunderstanding of the product. And the state governments also, who are stakeholders, are largely, I think, not doing their bit about spreading the awareness in the right way of, informing the farmers that it is being done for a calamity. When there is an abnormal event, that's when it gets covered as per terms of the policy, and not that that insurance is not a guarantee, and the minute you pay premium, there is no guarantee that you will be getting claims, which is the way it is understood today. And there are large-scale farmer protests across the country in many states, where farmers demand that claims need to be paid the minute premium is paid. I think the ones we are able to rely more on technology, more data is collected. The insurer is able to price the data basis the climatic hazards, historical hazards, as well as the models that we may end up making, which possibly could be more accurate to reality. Then we would be able to price our products better, and then this gap between the premium that is charged and the claims payout will reduce, and I think that will become more sustainable for both the insurer and the farmer.
Thank you, ma'am. And I think that's the end goal, as we all look at it, because the policyholder, the farmer, they all need to feel like they got the bang for their buck when they buy insurance or reinsurance. Hadi, on the reinsurance side, we spoke about parametric products. How do you see data further fueling more innovation as we go forward, of course, with climate change in the backdrop? How do you see the reinsurance solutions evolve over a period of time for the different insurance companies as clients?
Thanks, Nymphea. And I looked a few times up, and it's just to clarify, the climate here is very cold and changing and windy as well. So that's the context why I've been just looking to see how I can escape this. But okay, on data and innovation, I think this is highly relevant, and when we think about risk, our ability today to understand risk is largely driven by a lot of data points that we have on it, and to a large extent, historical data sometimes, and the experience that we understand how these risks behave. And there is no doubt that the development in technology, we talked about AI this morning, we talked about analytics, and as well the availability of data, right? What some of the initiatives, of course, in India, driven, we just heard from the CEO of IIB, but also, obviously Skymet and other companies trying to make data available. I think what this will do is make risks more insurable, make more risks insurable through deeper understanding of risk knowledge. And so that obviously will contribute significantly to help the industry close the protection gap, either by creating new products and solutions. But I think, you know, another interesting angle to what the availability of data can do to us and how can that help is actually, we always think about solutions post-event. But what is emerging now, and because of the availability of data and our ability to analyze it and to apply analytics to a really detailed degree on it, is trying to apply it in a prevention way. And so how can we today, for example, leverage the weather data that we have, the historical experience, and then develop our own models and understanding of risk to help the government assess the risk of building a power plant in a certain location and understand the impact of climate 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and understand what kind of design improvements need to be made for these structures to be resilient over the many years to come. I think that definitely is an emerging development which is creating a lot of interest for investors, for principals in infrastructure. A lot of, you know, this could be, of course, transposed to many other industries that would like to understand the impact of climate and proactively work to address that before the event, because there is that opportunity, and that's also one way to close the protection gap before the event happens, right? So I think, yeah, really interesting developments. Availability of data is going to be an enabler for our industry to make India and, in a sense, the world much more resilient.
Couldn't agree more, Hadi. I think the initiatives that, you know, governments world over are taking, and India is also looking to always achieve that net zero. You know, so we are moving in that direction, and of course, insurance and reinsurance plays a very large part in that. Jatin, the last question to you, and you know, how do you see more innovation coming in on the weather side? You have seen the analytics part of it, the assessment. How do you think India compares to rest of the world, to the investors sitting here in the room?
I think India is after winds going to go very fast. You see, weather forecasting has tremendously improved. I'm talking about the IMD. I'm not only talking about Skymet, okay? We have come up with an app in which you can talk to it. You know, your next 10, 15 days forecast is somewhat sorted. We have lightning data. You have radar data that is now there. We obviously need more Doppler weather radars, which are going to come in. Then a lot of the long-range, medium-range forecasts have also become quite decent. You're able to get a decent sense, though not perfect, a month in advance. Might not be good for farming, but for planning, you can anticipate, you know, in August, say, that July will be weak, there was going to be a bump in July, June would be weak, a bump in July, August did not look good, September was 50-50. So now you can see a lot of those things. Once the WINDS network is up and running, I'm also waiting for a lot of the LEOS satellites to go up. The problem with LEOS is that you need low Earth orbiting satellites. Will also create tremendous amount of data, both for satellite imagery for agriculture, also for precipitation. It depends on how quickly you'll be able to get it. But then you'll be able to forecast rainfall at a near kind of, say, pin code level with radars. And so it's only going to, and India is say India, and this is for everybody here. The question that I've been dealing with is, why is the weather forecast so much better, or used to be so much better in the Western world than it was in India? I think one of the things that I think Skymet changed was that I think the IMD became better at it, frankly, because there was no competition in improving weather forecasts. The other is that weather forecasts in upper latitudes is far easier than on tropical precipitation. And I think the weather models over the last 10 years, I've seen that the tropical precipitation forecast is becoming much, much better. Your flash flood, so on and so forth. Any rainfall event above, say, 150, 200 millimeters of rainfall is a very tough one. So it's going to be 200 millimeters of rainfall event. It's going to be 500 millimeter rainfall event. But that also has gotten better. And you'll see that I think most of the work for weather forecasts or quality of weather information has been done. I think now over the next 10 years, it's like the network effect is going to take place and the quality of information is going to be much better.
Thank you so much. And we'll now open the floor to any questions from the audience. I think we have another 3 to 5 minutes.
question to Mr. Hadi. This Nagaland example is being quoted for last 6-7 years. What happened? I mean, after that, there was no further program like that? Or it was not profitable for reinsurance company and maybe insurance companies?
Thank you for the question. And so the Nagaland cover was put in place in 2020. And I think it's a really successful and good example on how collaboration and partnership between public and private sector can help put solutions for NatCat, natural catastrophe, in place. So obviously, it would be an example that we would love to build on and replicate. I think there are a lot of efforts, and clearly I mentioned that there's a vision from the chairman, but most importantly, from a government perspective, government works hard to close the protection level, the protection gap in India, and so really we would love to see that replicated. I don't know that it has, there are other let's say solutions on a statewide statewide covers in place today. Maybe my panelists here can also add to it, but I think really a great example that we should build on, and not just for rainfall, but also for earthquake. I mentioned just in my address on the first question on what we've seen just this year between Turkey, Morocco, and the devastation that led to. I think earthquake is another risk that can be covered as well as part of these solutions. So I hope that we can replicate.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ankur. I'm from Marsh, India. My question is to Mr. Jatin and to Girija, ma'am. Ma'am, anything more on the data front that we can do, ma'am? How we can simplify the data requirement or the further data analysis part, which is, data is really going to be one of the most important drivers in terms of analysis, ma'am. So anything more on the data front we can do, or we can do to simplify the data requirements, ma'am? Anything we could share some thoughts on that? Yeah. And anyone, ma'am.
Yeah, so on the data front, data collection has to be done I think there can definitely be a lot more improvement in the way data is collected. It starts with the land integration, which is better than what it was, but it's still not optimal. Large parts of India, still the land integration is not done. So the identity of the land and the farmer, that itself is a very big issue, and very often during claim settlements, we are not able to pay off the claims because the identification also becomes an issue. So I think there has to be a lot of work that all the states need to strictly do the land identification, land record maintenance immediately. Apart from that, the boundaries need to be earmarked using the geographical information systems, and so that could help us in a large way when we use technology to assess claims. This could be done, and so this itself would, I think, increase the kind of delivery that we can give to farmers in terms of accuracy. Apart from that, a large part of the land that is tilled by farmers is done by marginal farmers and sustenance farmers, who are actually around 80 to 85% of the farming community. Only 15% of the land is tilled by farmers who own the land. So basically, we need to come out with some kind of a scheme wherein we could, the farmer who tills the land is able to get the claims, wherever the crops are destroyed. So that bit, I think in one particular state, Andhra Pradesh, they do have a system in place, because the data Andhra Pradesh is a classic example, because they have done so much of granular analysis on this. They've done perfect integration of land records, and so they're able to provide this scheme for the farmers who are tilling the land on behalf of landowners. So this, I think, would come in a very big way, to actually have farmers included into this, and more of subsidy from the government, and more of the involvement of the government in this data cleaning and data maintenance repository. would help in a big way. We could use technology also in a much better way. We could use blockchain technology to see that it is more transparent and more, it makes the data more protected and secure. Right now, there's a lot of data security issues also which are experienced from time to time. I think this would help us in accessing, data in a more secure and in a very transparent way that could bring the insurance, even the pricing could then be tuned to this improvements, and I think the farmer would be the best beneficiary of all this.
Actually, Ankur, you might have heard of something called the Agri Stack. Okay, the Agri Stack is going to go a very long way in what ma'am is talking about. So there are, everybody should know about couple of programs. WINDS is the weather part. YesTech is the remote sensing part. These are government programs. There's another program which is going to be called Krishi DSS, which is a decision support system for agri advisories. There's another very powerful program coming from the government called Cropic, which is picture-based identification of the crop and the quality and health of the crop just via pictures. And the next one, as I said, was AgriStack, in which they're integrating bank account, Aadhaar, land record, and giving every farmer a unique ID. See, the problem is that the land record integration, I mean, Skymet has integrated land record about 7 states, big states. But there is no formal way of actually doing it, and every state has its own way of keeping its land records, and states have been, for whatever reason, reluctant for putting it into a national database. The Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana portal was the first attempt to integrating that, and I see over the last 2 to 3 years that it is becoming better and better. As I said, these changes are going to be incremental, but over the last 2-3 years, I'm seeing that incremental pace is becoming, faster and faster. And AIC is going to be the first beneficiary of that because they have 40 to 50% of the market.
Thank you, Jatin. We have 2 more questions. Yes, please.
Just my question to you, it's a wonderful work that Swisri has done in collaboration with the Tata AG on the parametric insurance for the Nagaland state. What I understand is based on the rainfall statistics. So sometimes what happens is, that when we use one parameters, build the parametric insurance based on that, there is a chance of very high basis risk, right? Do you think that in the years to come, if we build on multiple parameters, probably, based on the correlations among them, do you think that it will reduce the basis risk?
Great question. And particularly, this is, basis risk is important in the context of parametric solutions, because what we want to ensure is that the cover that we develop actually pays in the event of a reasonable trigger to provide the relief for the buyers. I think the availability and the current models of whoever is developing these, there are multiple, of course, insurers, reinsurers, but also organizations developing these solutions. Obviously, the current models need to address the basis risk and ensure that protection is adequate. And to your point, I definitely see the availability of data and having more independent data provider, whether it's weather stations, whether it's satellite imagery, depending on what is the index that we are developing the solution or the trigger for, that will definitely help and go a long way to reduce basis risk. And what we've seen globally is whenever the effort to develop these solutions have been there, actually the investment to improve the quality of data also follows. So then sometimes we start with remote sensing technology, a solution for agriculture, which needs as well weather data to blend with it to improve the accuracy of, of the trigger. and we see that the availability of weather stations on the ground increase with time, because obviously there's vested interest for insurers, farmers, and various actors to invest in the development of this infrastructure. So they will go hand in hand. The availability of solutions and data, as I mentioned earlier, will definitely go hand in hand to improve the scale and scope of these covers.
Thank you. We'll take the last question.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Samit and I am from JB Boda. My question to all the panelists, and this is related with the city level risk we are facing. As you know, as we all know, in fact, the cyclones and floods are becoming an annual ritual. So, can we expect a city level risk zonation using tech to save property and lives? I believe insurers can benefit with the local partnerships, and this can be done at various cities under Smart City initiative. And I believe Swiss Re has been doing this in other parts of world. So your thoughts? Thank you.
Can you just, can you repeat a bit on the last part of the question? It's city risk you mentioned, or?
Yes, you know, the city level risk. Basically, India, as we know, is getting more urbanized.
Yes, okay, so city
level
the risk
basically, yes. Thank you.
I think this is also highly relevant in the context of whether it's climate change, NatCat, or just protection gap, and the complexity of our ability to model flood risk, for example, today. And why is that? So, you know, cities, obviously, you just mentioned, are becoming more urbanized, so we see a high concentration of risk and of course of lives in cities. We also see them developing in more modern ways. So we see tunneling, we see you know, new structures being built, and that obviously increases the complexity of being able to model accurately, for example, against risks like floods. And in fact, I would say in even some of the most developed countries, our models, I mean the industry models or vendor models that are out there, need updating and need further development. Yeah, clearly this is a highly important topic. The granularity of the data, the availability of it, and our ability to analyze it using, of course, you know, advanced data analytics, leveraging AI, and you know, obviously additional information like satellite imagery to understand ground level elevation and how cities are evolving over time is critical to be able to, you know, to first, like I mentioned, I mean, two things, right? We want to do. We want to first prevent, understand how climate change or how climate in general will impact certain locations geographically, and so build better. And of course, hopefully, in the event of, because we have to be protected as well in the case of severe events, hopefully develop better protection for cities with these highly accumulated sums insured and lives in them.
Thank you, Hadi, and thank you to the audience for the questions. It was good that you made it more engaging for us. And I would like to thank all the panelists for their wonderful contribution to this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.